Ready. Excellent. So it looks like we're going into this week's workshop, which has everything to do with trim sheets. Now, trim sheets are super useful to get the material count down because you'll use basically one to create an asset that looks awesome. That's basically what it comes down to. Now, I spent a little bit of time sort of making that asset. Separately, I won't do that because it took a couple hours, but we can use that moving forward. How to make trim sheets is a whole thing, but hopefully the process will make sense with how I show where it's at. Hey Zap, how's it going? Welcome to the stream. Let's get into it. Alrighty, so as always, if you have any questions, feel free to ask away. Hopefully, I'll catch them. With Mona, trim sheets, general creativity, you name it. I'm always up for chatting in the chat. So, yeah. So here is an example of a trim sheet that I've made. Basically, I made these assets in ZBrush. I unfortunately didn't make it in the best way, so the poly count was stupid high. So these wooden pieces here had like wood grain, for example, because I was going for a really stylized approach. The catch with that is it was sort of too big to import, so I had to figure that out. But a quick summary of what a trim sheet does is basically create areas on one texture or one material that can be used in different ways. So this area can be a wooden paneling or even single panels. Then we have like a metal block. Then we have sort of like a detail edge sort of thing that we could put on a rail, a slight edge, a bit of a depressed area of wood, some wood edges, so you got the sort of coil there, and some metal. And this allows me to kind of make anything that's made of wood, metal, and a bit of copper. So we'll be looking at examples of that. Elements of this to note, though, and this is not a completed asset yet, is we want all of these directions, if we're going all the way across, to be tileable. Now, this is not going to be because we have sort of a curve, and we'll see this in the examples. So I sort of wanted to keep this not complete to show you the effect of a non-tiled texture, and so that you know why we are tiling it. So that way you can do some really cool stuff. So because of that, this is not going to tile, and because of this edge here, this is also not going to tile. And that's fine, and I can show you why and how that applies to our asset. So, Zap, what kind of assets would you be wanting to make with the trim sheets? Are you going for realistic? Are you going for stylized? Are you just learning? Like, what's your poison? Now, in Substance Painter, this can export everything as for Unity, which is really good. Unity does metallic and smoothness a bit weirder than everybody else, so that's one thing you have to face. But yeah, we'll look at that. Now, I'll be using no, it's not Photoshop. I'll be using Blender to make the assets, and basically we need one material on an object. So I'm just going to quickly make a cube. We'll do that. Okay, cool. Yeah, wooden metal. It's great for fantasy. I'm a big fan of fantasy. So I've already got like, I want to make a door, I want to make a chest, I want to make maybe some tables and chairs, I want to make like lamps, maybe like there's tons of stuff that this one material can do. So looking forward to that. Okay. Hey, I'm not too sure how to say that one. Antoine? Did I get that right? Okay. So, let's get into Blender and make a new texture. So let's just go wood, metal. That'll do. And the thing is also, we're gonna need the texture. Um, Now to drag textures into Blender, let's reduce that. We can just drag and drop actually. So I'm gonna do that. So we got this one. Let's put the whole thing in there. So I got that. Put that over there. And normal. Now, if you're doing normals in Blender, you actually kind of need to do this one as well. So you can add nodes and search with here. It can go in there as well, but I just search. Put the color to the color, put the normal to the normal. We've got that. We've got the color down here. There we go. And then we have that. Now, as you can see, the normal map on our cube is not what I expected, actually. But I understand why, so that's that. Do we want... I kind of do. Why not? Um, put this on specular. Let's see what happens. Yeah, that'll work. And I want to try this one. Yeah, that's cool. All right, cool. So, hey, Bad Chad. How's it going? Welcome to the stream. As always, if you're new, feel free to ask any questions as we go. Otherwise, I'm just going to meander all the way through. So, let's have a look at this asset that we created with our cool texture. Now, the big thing we're going to be looking at today is... I want to change that to this one so we can see. Yeah. So this is what our model, let's put that up here, is creating on the asset. Now, with trim sheets, basically, we're using the texture to create the model rather than creating a model and then making a texture work with that. So say, for example, I wanted this to be like each side was going to be that. GY down, and then we've got sort of that. Ta-da, done. But let's say I wanted these to all be the same way around. So it's kind of there, but I wanted these ones. So I'm going to grab this edge, yeah, and split that, and then just rotate it. I want to go that way, there, and we can do the same with all of these. This one as well. Now, let's say with these two, I actually just wanted that to be, let's say wood. I want those to be woods. Now, the thing is, what we're going to do is because this is smaller than the hole, I'll actually need to create polygons to do so. So, and this is basically what we're looking at for a lot of the things that we're going to be looking at today. So let's just split that to make sure I'm putting that down here. Yeah. And then let's cut it again. This time I'm going to go maybe here. Now for that, I'm just using K. I use all the hotkeys. If you miss a hotkey, feel free to say, what am I doing? Let's split that one and then move that down. That's kind of what we want to do, but I want to move that up to about there. See, that one is slightly problematic. So let's move that as well. Now, if I wanted to, I could actually scale that up a bit. So I just want to see how that is. So that's not exactly what I want. So I'm actually going to grab that and then move this line down a little bit, just to make sure that it goes there correctly. With this one, I think, just to make sure that's on the right side. Yeah. So in a way, you'll find that left panel, that's up UV editing, if that's what you mean. So if you go to layout, if you go to UV editing, this is the left panel. Is that what you mean? Um, so yeah, now at the bottom, I might make this metal. Let's make that metal. Um, cool. Yeah. So all of the modes in Blender have different layouts, sort of thing. Um, that said, I don't use that many of them, so I always use layout for modeling. I guess you could use modeling, but I just use layout because the only difference is this. I haven't got into sculpting yet. I do really want to though. Since Maxon bought ZBrush and they kind of ruined that. But I definitely use UV editing a lot. I use shading a lot when I'm creating textures or baking. So I'll pull that up sometimes. And that's it, actually. So yeah. So let's get back into UVs. So I want to put metal down the bottom, just as a simple example. So I'm going to grab this bit and put this down here. Similar situation to the wood. We're going to cut in order to do what we want it to. So for that, I'm gonna let's just put it here. So follow the line there. Space. So let's get this going. Please let G. Now, another technique that you can use in this case is I'm going to move those up so I don't have that edge. So GX to move it this way. That one should be fine. GX to move it that way. So let's do that. I'm going to cut this one as well. Maybe down here. Selection. Now, in this case, what I'm going to do, because I want to sort of make sure that this tiles, is I'm going to actually flip this. So I'm going to grab this edge, move that to here, and then grab this edge and move that to here. So that's one approach, depending on the textures that you're working with. So, yeah, every version of your approach is going to depend on the assets that you make, the trim sheet that you make as well. Let's see if this actually does look better this way. Now, the reason I use tileable textures, yeah, yeah, basically. So that basically what we're doing is you design a texture to do what you want it to. And then you build the asset based on the texture. So it sort of creates a different approach to creating an asset, but you can create really complicated objects, and we'll get to that in a second. When you start building it, and it allows you to sort of just really reduce the amount of materials, e.g., down to one. The problem with materials, especially in a WebGL environment, is basically, I'm not sure why that's happening, but I have a way around that, so I'll look into that in a sec. So with a WebGL space, like the draw calls are very important. E.g., how many materials, how many unique materials are in a monoverse space, for example. Each one is making the GPU, and I guess CPU in a way, figure stuff out, which slows things down. So the more draw calls you have will slow down the space considerably. Now, with trim sheets, you are creating an entire asset with one material. Now, if I go to the trim sheet doc, so give me a second. We actually have all of this in our optimize your space docs. Okay. So for example, I made, and this is basically how I made this. So I made a ZBrush or Blender asset, and I baked that and textured that in Substance Painter, which is what we're working with the texture. So you have your three elements here, and then I made a whole house. So you have your concrete down here, your sort of main wall stage here, wood, some of it has sort of details on there, door, all that sort of stuff. The catch with all of this is your UVs look a little bit crazy, and that's fine. Especially when it comes to optimized assets and for WebGL, VR, mobile, we definitely have to do that. The end result is all that matters. How you get there doesn't. So trim sheets are a really good way to kind of cheat the system. Now, how do you define the size of your assets on the right panel? So these ones. So basically what happens is, yeah, you select the polygons that you would like to edit, and we're already getting a little bit weird over here. And then you go over here, select what method. So you got vertex, edge, face, and island. And then scale this around. So if I wanted to make this smaller, I could do that. And then you get that sort of effect there. But I want it as big. Now, in this case, this doesn't seem to tile so well. I don't know if this is a Blender thing or not. But what I'm going to do, just to make this sort of work, is I'm going to bevel these two. Hopefully this works. Yep. So do that. And then I'm going to grab these assets and move them up here. Like so. Now, those are scaled in one direction, which we don't want to do. So we want to scale X to make that go wider. Too wide. There we go. That's cool. And just for reasons, I'm going to put that up. And this one, we can sort of use the this bit. So I'm going to, let's just UV this one. So UV project from view. Cool. And then move that up there. Scale that up to about there. Then we have to get these as well. Move that there. UV, project from view, which is what we want. And then scale that up as well to about there. And then you have Kum tools and metal bars at the bottom with that. If you want, pardon me. If you want to make the actual size bigger, so at the moment this is 2 by 2 by 2. Then you would just scale this over here. So where your cursor is in Blender is where it will do things. So if I go over here and then go scale, it'll scale the texture. And then if you go over here, it'll scale the polygon. So we're all getting already getting that sort of interesting approach to dealing with how this looks. And once again, this is a simple example. So we're going to look at that's sort of like the fundamentals of a trim sheet and how you can sort of create interesting results very easily. But now we're going to get into some more stuff like a chest or a door, all sorts of things. So yeah, trim sheets is creating assets as both textures and objects. Usually, when you're creating assets, you'll be designing to the model, and then texturing to the model, and then doing all of that. Trim sheets is a very different approach to it, but one, super fun. You can get some really interesting effects by mistake half the time, and the other part is just, I don't know, creating, once again, highly optimized assets because it's one material. So one draw call for the whole asset. And if you had a bunch of different assets, so a chest, a door, and all of these using the same material, I think Unity, if it's set for static anyway, will try to batch all of those assets as one, um, which creates one draw call, which is much faster. So there's a lot of elements and benefits to using trim sheets to make cool stuff. No, so that's the other thing. No. But this is a prime example of the tileable texture, if you will. Um, so here's an example of wanting to make sure, and I haven't. So note that I haven't, because I wanted to make this very clear. This is not tileable, and it should be. So I could go into sort of Photoshop and tweak that a little bit. I might be able to do it in Substance Painter, which would be better because you are exporting the metallic and smoothness, the normal map, and the diffuse together. So what you want to do is basically make sure that this is able to be tiled, and that's, you don't need to keep it inside the UV space because it will just tile onwards by default. So as you can see here, if I select this asset, it goes all the way across. But here, it just keeps going. And you can do that with pretty much any asset. So let's say we want to grab one of these. And let's say we want the wood to be longer. I can't make it bigger because if I do, it'll start going into the tile. But I can scale this way if I want sort of squatter what are elements. Um, and once again, because it's not tiled very accurately, it doesn't look very good here. But if that was tiled correctly, that would be perfect, and that could go forever. So you could do that. Now, if you wanted to, of course, you could make it bigger as well. So if I wanted to break up these planks a little bit, I could sort of make some of them a bit longer, some of them a bit shorter, and then another one sort of the normal. And that breaks up that a little bit more. So that's a useful tactic. And if I wanted to, let's say this is getting a little bit too repetitive. So I want to move this up down there a little bit, just to sort of break that tiling. So for an extra couple of polygons, and that's the thing, in this method, you're actually creating polygons rather than removing them. But because you're reducing the draw calls, that kind of balances that out a bit. Now, of course, you don't want to go nuts. You don't want curves that have 20,000 million polygons. But you can definitely add, like, that's 4 polygons. No, 4 triangles, 2 polygons. Hey, Felix, how's it going? Welcome to the stream. Just to catch you up, we made a box. Done, finished. Stream done. Just kidding. So we're just sort of going over the basics of using trim sheets on an asset and how to do that in interesting ways. And now we're going to jump in and start doing something really cool. For example, let's shift that one away. Put that one over. What do we want? I usually use X. So GX, we'll put that over there for now. So, let's make a... What do we want? A door, chest, a lamppost. Any requests? So make a new cube and then apply our texture to it. Book. And to start, I'm actually just going to kind of create the beginnings of And if no one beats me to it, beginnings of a chest. Scale SY. Let's get the... Yeah, that works. Now, I want this to open, actually. All right, I'll make a door as well. I'll make a door now. Just for you, Zap. Which means my numbers are off. So let's apply that so those are all ones, and let's do this. The doors are usually 2 meters. 0.1? 0.05? Yep, that works. And 1. Yep, that looks like a door to me. Let's also get a frame going. So I'm going to duplicate that. Scale up maybe 10. Scale X maybe 10. And get some inset. Nope. Yep. Now notice when I use inset, that and that are different lengths. We don't want that. So for that, we're going to go apply transforms with Control A. Go back to edit. And then when you do inset, it's the right scope kind of thing. So I'm going to put that about there. Go bridge faces. So that'll close that off. I'm going to delete these ones. No, actually, I'm gonna keep that because I want to have that down in the ground sort of thing. So GZ for that, a little bit of the ground. It's good. We also want to make that a bit wider. So GY, no, SY. Cool. So we have our door. That's fine. What else do we need? Let's do... Okay. Let's do a quick doorknob. What kind of doorknob? Do you want like a handle or a handle or a handle? This new camera makes me sit up straight because otherwise I get cut off. How about I move that down a bit? Can I move that down a bit? Yeah. My hand's black. Yeah, that's okay. Well, let's do. I'd like to do using the screw modifier to do rotation because that's really cool. So I'm going to grab any of this. It doesn't really matter. So let's grab that. And I'm actually going to go to delete all of these edges. So I just have this. Well, I'm going to show this and then I can do that. Because I need to like detach that. So right mouse click, separate selection. I'm going to close the door. We'll get rid of the door. And then put this over on the pivot here because I want to do a cool thing. So add modifier, screw. And then we have that. But if we move some of these elements, we can do cool things. Now, the reason it's sort of like a bit weird is because it's not at the origin. So, yep. Why is it long? Ah, that's why. There we go. Yeah, scale is a thing. Control A is your favorite hotkey. Now we can do this. So once you have an edge with a screw on it, all you need to do then is just go E. You can do cool stuff. That. I'm gonna put merge on. Nope. Of course, you can get some really interesting effects there. So I'm going to move these around a bit. We make them a little smaller. So this allows you to basically lathe things, which is super useful. What we want to do. Now, of course, we're going to look at the texture in a second. Um, the problem with streaming as a perfectionist is you want everything to be really good. So you kind of waste a bit of time. So I apologize. I'm going to get rid of that one. Now notice if you delete a vertex, it'll get rid of it. But if I, what is it? If I dissolve the vertex, it'll get rid of that like so, which is what we want. Because this is a rotation, we kind of want the rotation to be a good number of polygons because we have that whole thing. We can adjust how many as well. Now that's maybe that's a bit high. We don't need it to be that high. Like that's good. So the poly count based on size in the space. So this is a handle. This is going to be like no bigger than, not use the invisible hand. It won't be bigger than this. So like this polygon here is like a centimeter. And to be honest, that's quite small. So basically, you adjust the poly count according to how big it's going to be in the space rather than anything else. So I think that's about what we want for that. There, I guess. Okay. So we have our door as a base. Now, this is purely just as a base because then we're going to be editing this a little bit more with, what do you call it? With the trim sheet. I'll make that a bit bigger. I might actually just make this less assets. Can I do... Hmm. Then I can grab those two and then merge those at center and then move up and down. Yep. And then I can dissolve that because that's a polygon that we don't need. So let's move these out a little bit and then we're good. We can make some other door handles too. All right. Let's get to the trim sheet side of it. So we want this door to be wood. So let's get that sorted. Now, one way, a quick way to do things, especially if it's applied the transform, is select all the assets and go Smart UV Project, and then it scales everything accordingly. Rotate that, scale it down, and then we sort of have that element there. Same here. And same here. Now, these ones, I actually want them to be solid. So I can do that. Yeah, we have a door. Too easy. Now, with the... exit. Nope, that one. Let's go to that one. Where is it? It's a different asset. If you're making a bunch of different assets and you only select one, when you unwrap it, it'll only select that. So if you can multiple select all of this, and this is very important when you want to put everything in the UV, but because we don't need to in this, it doesn't really matter as much. So this is what I want to do with some interesting stuff here. So once again, it's all, make sure that it's all 111, and then unwrap that again. So let's go Smart UV. Done. Now I'm going to put it over here a little bit to see what we're doing. And I want to split these. Now the reason I'm splitting those is because I'm going to do this. Let's use this one. Now I want all of these to be the same scale. So when you're scaling this one, I want to make sure that this one is sort of the same. So there are different elements of kind of controlling your UV to work. Because otherwise, if I did that, but these were different sizes, say these were a bit back to normal, then the scale of the grain would be different. So that is a consideration to make. Now, what I'm going to try and do, because I'm interested in seeing this, now this might be too much, so we'll give it a shot. I'm actually going to drop this here. I'm going to sort of try and create wooden pieces. Scale x0, scale x0, and then drag these up as well. Now, the hotkeys I'm using for all of these, if you don't know, are just G, X, and Y. The UV is on a 2D plane, so X and Y are the only ones that work. Z does not. Z does over here, of course. But just moving things around, especially with hotkeys in Blender, is, well, anything, to be honest. is super useful. So what's happening there? That's over there. Right. So you do get this sort of warping here. And depending on how it plays, like you can see that it snaps kind of there. But I kind of don't mind it. So let's continue with these ones and see if we can kind of make it work. And if it doesn't, we will try again. So I think a lot of trim sheets are kind of quite a little bit exploratory, which I like. Sometimes you'll get better results than you expect. Sometimes they'll be worse, which is kind of just going to use align X. I kind of want that there. So let's do that instead. I'm just going to grab these. Move them along here. That's what we want. So now let's see. Sort of in the middle. Grab that. Now this is an example of this is a lot shorter than this, but we want the scale of this texture to be the same. So I'm actually going to cut across here and flip a couple of things. So let's do that. But first, I want to move this to there. I think it's a very common question, but it's also a very difficult answer because it's not just polycount that does it. And also, like, say for example, with the cube that I added before, I added two polygons, which doesn't really matter. So when you start talking 5,000 polygons or more, then you're going to be saying, okay, that's going to cost. So it really depends on many factors, like how big is the asset? How many of that asset are you going to do? Are you using prefabs or, say, occlusion culling to optimize the space? Are you reducing material counts in other areas? Are you what's your lighting? So are you using real-time lighting? And if so, does it have shadows? And if so, are the assets dynamic? Blah 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 blah. So there's no easy answer for what is the poly count. The answer is always as low as possible. Basically. But that said, like trim sheets, like you usually design an asset with trim sheets with low polygons in mind. like when we finish this door, like it's going to be less than a couple of hundred probably, but look really good. So as another example of adding poly count, I'm actually going to cut here and here because we want to do this and we want to keep this resolution kind of quite high. So for that, I'm going to grab all the polygons that I'm going to cut. It's basically all of them. And then use, where is it? Bisect. Yeah. That's now with bisect, I find that you kind of have to select all of the polygons that you want to bisect before you use it. And then you can do cool stuff. So just a heads up on that. Holding left control can snap it, so that's quite useful as well. And there we go. All right, so now we have that. We can sort of do some interesting stuff with this. Where is it? That one. So here, what I'm going to do is basically flip this up to here. We have that sort of wood element here as well. So even if you aren't tiling it, you can have a little bit more control over your assets to make it do what you want it to. So let's do this one as well. That one dark. There's no reason for that to happen. That there. Let me see. Is that a question or a statement? What do you mean by that? Okay. Um. Uh. Yes, but what's happening in the rest of the space? Like it's a good starting point for sure. But like, yeah, what does the rest of the space have? Do you have cups on desks? And if so, how? What is the poly count of the cups? How many cups do you have? Like, yeah. What is the ballpark? What is the poly count of the whole ballpark? Um, there's no answer. There is no strict answer to the element of what is the poly count for an asset when the resulting the space considers everything. Um, So, say for example, if you don't have an optimized space through occlusion culling and stuff like that, if you have a building, um, and then you had a room in that building, and in that room you had desks and chairs and cups and keyboards and all that sort of stuff, it will render all of it. Um, so that stacks up real quick. But if you had occlusion culling and you had the whole office, sort of, for example, but the occlusion culling would cull that so it doesn't render it, then the building could be higher polygon, for example. So when it comes to optimizing a space, the space is the question, not one asset. Every asset should be as small as possible. Every asset has to be probably less than you think. And the reason for that is WebGL, like running on a web page, is not running in Cyberpunk 2077. So we've sort of lost a couple of years in regards to uh, quality because we can't use ray tracing, we can't use nanite or any of the crazy technology that Unity and Unreal are coming out, where it's like polygons don't count anymore. WebGL is limited. So we still, unfortunately, have to do things like trim sheets, occlusion culling, um, baking, light mapping, for example, is a good way to get lighting optimized because you bake the light into a texture and it increases the file size a little bit, but the performance is really good. So there are thousands of techniques, and a lot of these come up in the docs as well. So we actually cover a lot of these. So you got to optimize your space, for example, which is this category, which goes into how to optimize your mesh. So you don't want meshes that look like this. Ideally, you want meshes that look like this one, not this one. This is okay. So it really depends on sort of what you're trying to do and what the asset is. So a curve, I would probably say this is maybe a little high. But this is the best cube. So it depends on what you're talking about. We do have mesh optimization workshops. I think I did this a long time ago, where you do actually have a curve and reduce that as much as possible. And we also have photogrammetry, so baking textures of photogrammetry onto lower polygon assets. Trim sheets, which is what we're doing today. And then there's optimizing the space itself. So you have level of detail. So the further an asset goes away from the camera, the lower polygon count it is. Reducing draw calls, which is a big thing, which is kind of what we're doing as we're reducing material count. Texture compression, that's just file size, reducing the file size, because the limit of a monospace is 250 meg. We have increased that recently, though. And then you got occlusion culling, which is very technical, really annoying to do, but super useful. And of course, light mapping, which allows you to have really good lighting, but doesn't really cost that much, except for the file size. So very few real-time lights, and a lot of really nice light mapping. So yeah, there's thousands of ways you can optimize a space. Trim sheets are just one of them. The thing is, and I think that this is a big thing with a lot of people coming into monospaces, you aren't expected to know all of it. You get this over time, sometimes years, and that's fine. Like that's the process of game development or learning any skill. What I do recommend though is try not to make a huge space. Like make a small one. Get used to the things that you're learning for that version. So if you're learning trim sheets, make a space based on trim sheets. Then you'll get really good at that. And then the next space, work on light maps, for example. So choosing the skill that you want to learn allows you to get better at that particular thing quickly and freak out less that you're not learning everything, because there is a lot. It can be a little intimidating, but it's also awesome. So yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of that actually. So I wonder if I could sort of. I like this, like those that edge, that wooden piece there is kind of cool. Um, but let's. I wonder if that's got something to do with it. Hang on, flatten all of these. Hey, welcome, social justice. How's it going? Right, let me start. I have a uni terrain in my space so that I can paint textures on it, but I heard it's too heavy. Is there an easy way to replace it to terrain with a plane? Um, Terrain is okay. I haven't used it much, so I can't say. I can't answer that. This is the short answer. We do have spaces with terrains in it, though. I think if you go to JPEG land in Mona, it's definitely terrain. Let's have a quick look because it's a really nice space. The catch with that is the person who did it is really good technically. This one here. Um, this guy is particularly good at making spaces from a technical side, so it's highly optimized, and he can do amazing stuff because of it. Um, but as you will see, terrains are in use. um, so it's possible, but to be honest, I don't know how he done it. How he's done it. I think he's done it though. Like that's definitely a sort of like a texture element. So yeah, possible. Yeah, I don't know how he does what he does. Like I know what I know, but he's like next level. So now that we've done the sides, we can actually just grab these ones and make them pretty quickly. And we have a door. Cool. So once again, I'm going to smart UV project. Go. Rotate those. And to be honest, it doesn't really matter as much because you won't really see these, but I'll put them sort of here. So let's just split selection, move. Less important because it's not going to do any of the cool stuff that we've been looking at here. Yeah, it's solid. Very impressive. Like even just the lighting, like I don't even know how he does that. Lightning in the sky is like really cool. Also sound, like it's subtle, and I think those are the best spaces that have, like if you open a door, the door should make noise. Um, Spaces with audio like music aren't smart because then you can't do live streaming or anything like that. But I think situational noise is really good. Generally, I found that yes, not only more detail, but I think because you can do light mapping and all of that sort of stuff in Unity, It gives you a little bit more scope of things you can do. Um, Although I think Spatial have added that recently, where you can actually open up the space in Unity. Not too sure, um, but yeah, they probably all gonna move into the same space, do the same thing. Spatial's copying what we do. We do what Spatial do because they're the right things to do. Um, so there's a lot of that. Okay, what do we got? All right, door. Now let's get a sort of metal door knob. Now, in this case, we can't unwrap this, I don't think. Can we? No. Because it's not flat yet. So I'm pretty happy with that door handle. So I'm going to apply that. You can only apply it when it's in object mode. Apply. I'm also going to make sure that the end is joined, which it is. I'm also going to go to shade smooth. Put the normals on. Let's go 60, 90. But I want to mark sharp as well. Okay. So let's. What do we want to do? How do we want to do this? Let's do something cool. Why on earth does it look like that? Let's go cylinder projection. Nope. Ah, let's do this. So one all very very useful tool in the UV thing is like unwrapping basically. So if you get the edges, go to mark seam. I'm gonna add probably these two as well, just a little bit more, and I'll make sense of that in a second. So mark seam, select all the asset, and then just go unwrap. Ta-da! So unwrap allows you to basically unwrap an object flat. The catch with this is though you have to kind of make sure that it doesn't stretch as much as possible. Now, curved assets like this are a bit tricky. So what I'm actually going to do as well is... there we go. Mark seam on the whole thing because it overlaps as one. So I'm going to mark seam. Actually, I'm going to change the location of that seam for reasons. So clear seam, I'm going to make it flat across here because that'll look better. Yep, mark seam. Date, scale, up here. Now, of course, you want the scale of objects to be as big as they can. That makes sense. Okay, let's grab all of those. They seem to be joined for some reason, so let's split those and then just move it down. Move it a little bit. The catch is, as you can see here, there is a seam. So different approaches to that could be... that approach, so you can flip it. That said, I don't want to do that. I'm going to do something a bit cooler somehow. So let's grab that. And that, actually. And bevel it. Nope. That one and that one. Yeah, that's cool. And then I'm going to, sort of unravel these, if that makes sense. I'm not sure this is going to work well, but worth a try. Ah, that's what I was doing. Marxine. Let's try that. Unwrap. Just, I don't know, smart UV project? No. uh, nope. Because okay, interesting. So with that, if these are seams, I'm hoping, yeah. So that was Control L. So that will select everything that is the island, and then if I go unwrap, it'll just be the selected ones, which is what we want. So smart UV project, cool. Take that, and then go small. Actually, I kind of like that. That said, I want extrusion. So let's go extrude to individual. No, extrude along normals. Again, just unwrap that. Excellent. Now, there are some normal elements that I would like to clean up there. As in, yeah. So that is not as clean as I would like it, but to save time, I'm. Oh no! Oh, that went in. That went out. No, that's fine. Well, that's out and that's in. Huh. Okay. You get the idea. All right. So we have a door. Now, the next thing you need to do with doors is I'm actually going to attach that. Join. And the thing is, with doors, you want that pivot to be either there or there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this across to there. just because I find this an easier way to do things. Um, go Control A, all transforms, and then move this back to there. That way, when you rotate, ah, you have a door. There, there's a door. Now, if I wanted to, I'm going to do this as well. So let's create that door. Let's start naming these. Door face, door frame, wood, because I want to make a different one. So I'm going to duplicate that actually. Go over here, maybe over there. Cool. Now let's make door number 2. This time, yeah, this time we're actually going to get rid of these. Once again, polycounts count. Polycounts matter. So I'm just going to go delete, dissolve edges, and then it'll do some interesting things. And this is quite interesting as well. Like you can actually use this to your advantage where 1 pixel stretched can actually give you some really interesting effects. So do that because it's cool. Let's unwrap that again. Let's grab all of these ones. Take that to there, say. Now all of these are at the same length, so we actually want that. So I'm just going to plunk them there. And then let's put it on this one. I think that'd be cool. Yeah. No, we just want the front to be that, and the rest can be like thin metal. So let's put that sort of there. Once again, sort of keeping it at the same scale so the resolution of that texture looks correct. And with these ones, we're actually just going to flatten that. Not that way. There we go, new door. Now I want to kind of clean this door up and make it a little cooler. So for that, I'm going to grab these and bisect it. What? Now the reason I'm putting them there is because I want to get this door metal. So let's front project that one. Rotate that. Now we do want that to sort of make sense. We don't want the circles to be there. Now the question is, like, do we want it a bit smaller because otherwise sides are a bit much, if that makes sense. So I actually want that to be the same as the rest of it. Do I, though? Or do I want it down there? I think that actually makes more sense. So I'm going to do that. I'm also select it. Okay, fine. And that one, because I want to extrude. Yeah, I want to extrude that a little bit. So extrude individual. Up we go. So it's fine. I'm not even going to clean that up. I could. Yeah, I should. But that's good. Okay, door two. I think that'll do for doors. Let's make a chest. How are we going for time? Yeah, one chest, and then we're good. So back to the drawing board. We want a cube. Well, I generally find. Let's do 0.5. Yeah. 0.6. Yeah, that works. Okay, cool. And then we want that kind of again. Because we want uh we want cool stuff. So scale Y GZ about there. Yep, that works. And then so that's okay, but it's a bigger chest, right? So I'm actually going to. Yeah, I'll just select these. Not that. And do this one. It's the sort of resolution we want. Once again, lower resolution is the goal. So I will kind of keep at last. There we go. I'll kind of keep that resolution based on the size. So let's say most polygons will be this big in real world space. Rough guide. If it's curved, and that's the important thing. So if it's straight, oops. If an asset is straight, then you want to actually reduce that as much as possible. So a cube will have two polygons on that whole side, and then this side will have as little as possible. But the curves, that's where it gets tricky. And if you have a whole asset that is curved, like a character or a sculpture, then you start looking at creating retopology and baking that high polygon detail onto the low polygon detail. So when you look at it, let's say straight on, it actually looks as high polygon. But when you look at the edge or the silhouette, that's when you start seeing some interesting stuff. So, yeah. That said, I'm going to get rid of these because I want to do some stuff. So, delete dissolve edges is what we want there. Delete dissolve edges. That's good. That's a little bit too many, actually, but if this is a big chest, maybe it's okay. The thing is also with a stylized asset, you kind of want low quality. So I'm going to do that, actually. Nope. If you do one of those assets, for example, at center, and then you go Shift R, it'll redo exactly that. So that's a fast shortcut for those sort of things as well. Yeah, I actually like that. For the style effect that we're going for, this is actually pretty good. Now, let's start chopping this up. Yeah, let's start chopping this up. So, Control R will add an edge loop. Control R will add an edge loop. Do the same over here. We can add one there as well manually. So we'll just do that. Not really, no. Unless, like, it can, if, I think with Amplify, you could start doing some really weird stuff with shaders, like creating a custom shader. So the short answer is yes, but Unity itself does allow you to create second UVs in Unity for light mapping, but that's only for your light mapping. So if you're using the Unity light mapper, you can generate light map UVs on the asset, and then it will create the second UV for that. So yeah, with Amplify, yes, you can. Now, let me see. Yeah, we want that to be a little bit. Maybe there. Um, six. Make sure the amount is the same. Oops. And then that one. There. Roll A for all transforms. As you can see, the scales here are a little bit off. Now, if I wanted to, instead of doing all transforms, I could just do scale. And that'll fix that up. So when I do this and this one, extrude along normals, it should do that, which is what we want. Cool. That's kind of it. We missed these ones. Now this one, once again, poly count is important, so I'm actually going to clean these up a little bit. So I'm going to merge at last. Yep. That one. And bit as well. Okay, cool. We have our chest. Now we don't have a material on it, so let's go wood material. one thing that it doesn't like, there are two things that annoy me about Blender. One is if you have multiple options selected, you can't apply some things to both. So, yeah. The other one is weight painting. Can be a pain. But yeah. All right. So we have our asset. I'm going to grab this. Let's check. Scale seems good. Yeah, so that should be fine. Do that. Once again, the easiest, quickest way to do a lot of this is just Smart UV project. Does that, very big, move it off so you know what's what. And let's get some... Let's grab these ones. All of these ones first. Cool. Smart UV project, done. Move that down here. Now with this one, we can actually start doing what we kind of need to do. Ah, okay. Now notice how this one broke. We don't want that. So I'm going to try that again and do angle limit at 90. And then it's all joined. So that's good. The thing is, note though that how do you explain that? I'm going to use this. That allows you to select this and show what's over here. So these two are usually separate, but if you use these arrows here, it kind of does the both. So you can sort of see what you're doing. I wanted to get them. Do I? Does it? I don't think I've ever used that for weight painting. I had another one. What's it called? Like weight paint tool or something really non surprising as that. Unoriginal, that's the one. And that does an all right job as well. But the fact that you can't, it's just, yeah, it's just complicated. It was much easier in Max. And the thing is, I don't paint that many weights because I'm usually do low poly characters. I usually assign vertices manually. And the way it works in Blender is not that friendly, basically. Apart from that, Blender is freaking amazing and free. So, you know. Yeah, so that is Auto Rig Pro, 100%. Is that what you're talking about? Okay. Yeah. Now you questioned only two. The answer is kind of, once again, if you get Amplify or Shader Forge is free, but I don't think it's supported as much anymore. Whereas Amplify is, and that allows you to create your own shaders. And I think one of the nodes in that is the equivalent of adjusting UV maps kind of thing. So there are ways to do it, but trim sheets are used for anything. Like you could literally create a sculpture, a wall. And the thing is, a wall is a good example of, well, a highly detailed wall, yes. A simple wall, no. A simple wall would be a tiled texture. And depends on how much wall the space takes, right? So if you had one massive wall, um, you could create a 1024 by 1024 tileable texture, and that will tile in the material settings that you adjust in Unity across the whole thing. Um, Now, because that uses so much space, that's fine as one material. But if you had a detailed wall, so say for example, one idea, and once again, there are many ways to skin a character. But if you had a wall, and at the bottom and at the top, you had that sort of, I don't know the architectural terms, the thing at the top and the bottom. That you wanted to be a different material or a different texture sort of thing, you could create that with one texture. So even though you have like that around everywhere, you could create the whole building with one texture if you do it correctly. So it's every asset you make has the best way to do it, generally speaking, and it depends on the asset. So if it's a simple wall, probably not. If it's complicated wall, maybe. But it depends on how much wall there is. It depends on what kind of texture you're going to use, and if it's tileable, that sort of thing. Um, Initially, for walls and floors and stuff, I'd probably say no, especially if you're just beginning. I would use trim sheets on like a shelf or a desk or furniture, for example. I probably wouldn't use it for an entire space or walls and ceilings and all that sort of stuff. Okay, so let's get back to this. Um, hmm. Ah, now small note. Because of how I've modeled it, you've got these sort of things, and these aren't needed. So I'm actually going to put these together. Now I'm going to do it now because I'm going to unwrap these to sort of clean this up. Now, if I wanted to do something with that, I could, but I'm not going to because I have some ideas with that. So it depends on, well, yeah, yeah, there are ways. This one I'm going to keep though, um, or at least on the inside, because I actually want that to be, and I'm going to do that now. I actually want it to be a chest. So at the moment it is not. E for extrude. Put that down to there. Nope, too high, too low. You're welcome. Yeah, the trick with a lot of these like asset creation is there's many different ways to do it, and the only way to know which one is best is by understanding all of them. So learning how to do trim sheets, learning how to do tiles, materials, learning how to do retopology and baking. Those would be the three main ones or tools that you would use. And then once you know how to use them, then you can start saying, okay, this one's best for this, this one's best for this. So yeah, there's many different ways to it. It's just a case of choosing the right one. I might bevel that. I might get rid of that. Delete, dissolve edges. Then we can do that. Cool. Now, because you'll never see this, I'm actually going to do a lot less polygons than, say, like, I don't want to make it accurate to that, I'm just going to reduce that a bit. Go away, box. Go away, doors. And I think that's a Y. So sort of there, and then move that down a bit so it's sort of there, and that's fine because it's not important. Baking is, how do you describe baking? Okay, so let's say I had a high polygon chest. It had this. This is baking. I wonder if it's still here. Excellent. Um, so using Painter, using Blender, a lot of 3D creation tools do this. But basically, what happens is you will get a high polygon asset, and these, like those circles, are actually polygons. You've got like carved metal here that sort of creates this. So this is a very high polygon asset that I made in ZBrush and put it under that. Now, on top of that, I basically made a flat plane. So that is literally two triangles or one polygon. And what you do with a lot of things is you will bake the high polygon information onto the low polygon information to get basically what we're playing with this texture. So when you go back to the painting mode, you can see the detail, even though that's just the texture. So this two triangle texture looks like it has a lot of detail in there, for example. Now, when you create an asset, now I have, let's do this. Yeah, this one. So when you're looking at something like, I'll shut this down. Photogrammetry, not even the right one. So if you're looking at photogrammetry, that is ridiculously high polygon, and there is no chance you can get that into monospace because that's too high polygon. So what happens is you will retopologize the asset. So you'll make a low polygon. You'll basically trace the asset to be low polygon. And then eventually, as you can see, we're sort of creating the low polygon asset as we go, and that's a lot lower polygon. Then you will unwrap it, so everything is in this case in the 1 of 1, because it all needs to be custom or unique map information. So you have to put the whole asset in the 0 to 1 space. With trim sheets, you can go a bit crazy, but with this one, you kind of don't. And then you bake that information onto the low polygon so that when you create the asset, you actually have the high quality information on the low quality information. So on the edge, it looks low polygon, but on the actual side, it looks quite detailed. So you can do some really cool stuff with that. So baking and retopology are other tools. Mesh optimization, this is another one that goes into it, where I take a very high polygon asset, retopologize it, in this case using shrink wrap and stuff like that, and then baking that information onto the low polygon. And these are basically the same thing. So the edge does look a little sharper, but you go from that to that, which is what you want with pretty much any asset that you make in Mona, or for Mona, or for the WebGL, for VR, for mobile. There's a lot of resources that you need to create these assets in a more optimized way. So do it. Is the short answer to that. Okay. You're welcome. Yeah, baking, like, I kind of really enjoy baking on the grounds that it, like, the results you can get with it are really cool. Um, and it's kind of like a look what I can do. Like there's an element of, I guess, pride, you could say, where you're looking at an asset, and you've done really well, but the poly count's really low. Good. This and this are not. Let's grab those two. Excellent. Now let's unhide our other cube and let's get some of these metal things more metal. So let's grab these and sort of put them up. Well, actually, I'm just going to do this again. 90 is a bit high, so I'm going to put that down to maybe 75. Yeah, cool. That's what we want. Oh! Ah. Yeah, that's fine. Take 5 seconds. Um, thing is also, all these assets are therefore the same size with the wood, which is kind of what we want. Yeah. Okay. Let's grab these, rotate those that way. And for now, I'm kind of going to focus on just getting these metal because I want to see what that looks like. And then I'm going to start doing the cool stuff. Get these there, get these there, there. Scale down. Done. Ah, let's do this again. Grab that. Then go Smart UV. Cool. Let's rotate all of those. And then get most of these in there. Once again, get a feel for it, and then we can start doing some customizations of elements there as well. That's too big. So I'm going to grab that, split that. Then we can put it in. Going on there. Something's going on there, so I have to fix that in a sec. Actually, let's fix that now. Okay. So we have a chest, basically. But I want to do cool things. So let's do this. Excellent. Excellent. So notice here, I could maybe merge those two, but I actually want that to be a line across. Same with this one. Grab these, scale them up. And then scale them that way. Much more interesting. Now, note that you have to use the UV sort of the way you want it. So you want to make sure that everything is just kind of perfect. Let's do these as well. So that's one thing. So I can rotate that there. That up. And once again, we want to make those dots kind of the same size as those and also the same placement. So let's make that go the right size that way. And then we can scale it that way a little bit. Yeah. That way a bit. Now you may note there's a little bit of warping, or it seems like there's a little bit of warping, so that's easy to fix just by sort of grabbing that and then moving it as you need to. And yeah, just adjusting as need be. So it seems like it's a bit warped. So I'm going to make sure the scale's good. Do this again. Are good. That one, not so much. So let's grab that a bit. Move that up to about there. Same with this one. Just to get that sort of element there. Much better, but we have an overlap here, which we don't want. So I'm going to this and then move that a little bit so that doesn't happen. Excellent. Cool. And same again over here. So as you can see, the tools that you use, it's a different way to create assets, and I think it's cool. I really enjoy it. Over here a bit just to break it up a little bit more. Make sure we use different tools. Move the whole thing there. All right. Over chest. Kind of want to put it across there and down the bottom as well, and I think it will. Now, this is a good example of. Oh, I kept it. I didn't kept it in there. So, in this case, we do actually have to keep that asset or the poly count where it was, if that makes sense. So I'm just going to add these back. I'm also probably going to just get rid of these ones. Because dissolve edges. And then we can just grab these. I'm going to grab those as well, I think. Okay. So this is a good example of optimizing, but what would you call it? Only needing what you need. I'm going to do at last. So we save these two triangles here, but we keep this one here, and that's fine, right? So yeah, poly count is kind of everything. And there's ways to optimize but do what you want it to do, if that makes sense. So let's smart project that one. These. Flatten these ones. Align Y. Cool. And then up we go. Embiggen. Let's kind of some of that detail in there because that's kind of cool. Yeah. Now note that these ones didn't work, and that is fine because we can just grab them now and do it again. Just want to make sure you don't have halves. So this is going to manually go through and just make sure that it looks as good as it can. That's good. That's not. Good. The catch is I kind of like the bigger. Do I? Yeah, I kind of like the bigger circles. So I'm actually going to have to reduce the size of these. As much as I like the edge there, and you might like reconsider, like rework your original texture to get the sort of scales that you want, if that makes sense. So say if I wanted that corner edge, I could do that, but yeah. So case by case, I think that's good. Overlap here, so we can move that up. Alrighty. Last thing we want to do is just it's done. The inside wood or not, usually. Let's do a bit of both. So I'm going to put a no, that put that up here. Now, because it's inside, I'm actually not going to worry about adding bevels or anything like that, but I am just going to change the texture. It's also very easy to do. like so. And that's fine. Um, like you wouldn't really need to put the depth in there because you wouldn't really see it. Um, that said, I do kind of want things to line up. Do that. Oh, one chest. Now what we want to do, same with the rotation. We want kind of everything to be here. So when I rotate the asset, it's there. But I want the lid to be there. So I'm going to move it down and then go Control A, all transforms, and then move that back up to there. That way, when you rotate, you have a chest. Now, the next thing we want to do also is maybe, what do you call it? Smooth. Shade smooth. Now, for that, we want auto smooth to be like maybe 60. So it sort of smooths that over the top, which is what we want. Cool. Alrighty. So one asset, very low polygon still, but also one material instead of, say, maybe three. um, it's kind of what we want. Now, of course, you could make it as complicated as you want. Like what there are tons of tutorials on trim sheets. You can do some really interesting stuff with, say, a vase with ornate designs like framing, all sorts of things. So there's a lot of stuff you can do with trim sheets. That said, let's take this into Unity. So what do we got? What's this called? Chest. Not one selected, and I will, if it's not animated or got any armature like a rig or anything, I'll put apply transform just to increase the chances of not having issues in Unity. Actually, I'm going to do that again. Good thing to name your things. Chest, lid. There we go. Let's hide those. Let's get the doors going. Yeah, pretty much. We just need to get it into Unity. And then we'll call it. I think. Oh, no. Where's the... Oh, gotcha. Now, when you export from Blender, note that it's always from this pivot point. So I recommend if you're doing like modular assets that you really clean up the positioning and stuff like that. So there's that. So keep that in mind when exporting assets. So it's door one. That. And we'll get our wood door as well. Also, with Unity, you have like pivot and center. So there's a few different approaches to how you can rotate or modify. Is a good word there. Your assets. So, oops. Door two, export. Now, what we need to do is get rid of all these things and start a new project. So let's do that. Do 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 do. All right. So this is the download you would get from GitHub. So I'm just going to unzip that, extract here. Yeah. Now trim sheets is the different approach. And once again, there's nothing wrong with the previous approaches unless you have like 20,000 materials for something that's quite small. But it is a very useful tool on how to do stuff. So just another what do you call it? Tool in the tool belt. Open. Um, nope. I think, yeah, as noted for what do you call it? Optimized space creation or asset creation, which is kind of the same thing. Um, yeah, trim sheets is one. Um, Simple modeling, like just designing your assets to be small, like a desk can be very simple. You don't really do trim sheets. You just put wood on it, or if it's a colored, like a simple color, that's fine. Um, so just simple modeling, and retopology and retopology. If you sort of have a vision in mind of a high polygon asset, um, and then just using retopology to simplify it after you've made it. That's another approach. And then you have retopology in baking, which is projecting high polygon information onto low polygon information. So those would be the sort of four approaches that I use all the time. I'd use it with characters. I use retopology and baking with characters. That's how all characters are still done. Um, that's changing with Nanite and Unity's approach to ridiculous poly counts, but we're not there yet. So let's have a look. Load space scenes. Remove the untitled scene. Now we need to drag our assets. So we have all our assets here in my folder. So I'm just going to drag the textures, the three textures, into textures. That's that. We also need our three FBXs into models. This will come up if you're like it's clear that the asset is a normal map, which it kind of is. So I'm just going to go yes because it's got underscore normal. I think it'll pick that up normally. Otherwise, you can go to the texture and click it here. It's usually on default. Put it to normal map. Or many ways to do it. Create a material. So let's do that. So let's save that. Ignore. Right mouse click, create a new material. Metal, wood. And then drag the offset into the things on the left here. So we have, let's embiggen this. That's cool. We have our normal map. And because it's not normal, but it's going in the normal map, you can go fix now here as well. So there's a few different ways to it. And I'm hoping this is going to work. Perfect. So Painter does exports of textures really well. So I'm happy about that. Now, because we have our models and they all use the same material, we can actually just drag that material here. So every time we put it in, it'll bring that material with it. So this is on the mesh in the material section. And then drag and drop onto that. Note that in Blender, your asset needs to actually have a material. If it doesn't have a material assigned, then you won't be able to do that. You can drag and drop it on it like externally, but this is a good way to do it. If you're importing assets and you're going to use light mapping, I would select generate light map UVs here. But because these are dynamic objects, e.g. the chest is going to have an open and close, and the doors will also open and close, I'm not gonna do that. So just heads up on that. Let's put these assets here. F to zoom in. Goes there. Goes there. There. Okay. So notice up here we have center and global. If you go down to pivot and local, you can rotate it from the position of what it is set in Blender. So that's super useful. Now with that though, I'm going to rotate that there, so it rotates the right way. Door as a total, but we don't want that. We want the base. Rotate there. And door, no, this one. Door base, rotate there. So there we go. I'm going to get rid of the portal, and I'm going to turn the spawn point around so we can admire the wonders of 2.25 hours of work. That's it, I think. Let's check it. So if this is your first time to Mona, basically when you press Playground, your Mona Playground website will come up and your Playground files will also come up. You drag that into there. And we have liftoff. That's how easy it is. Now, what I could do very easily is to create two reactors. So when I walk through when I walk near the door opens for me. I could create an interact reactor, so I could do that. Should I do that? I kind of want to do that. I want to do that. Usually I will delete the playground files because sometimes it doesn't update. So usually I'll save before building or delete the playground files to make sure that it's updated. Let's do a quick react. So for this, what do we need? We need animation. So let's do that. Yeah, let's put it on our asset. So if you want to see your animation, it's in the window animation. You have animation and animator. So grab that, create. Put it in an animation. So chest idle. That's great. The only thing we want to do is affect the lid. So I'm going to snap it up and then snap it down again. So that's done. Then I'm going to create a new clip. Chest open. Save. Once again, opening that. Now this is a simple animation. Yeah, let's do it there. Yeah. And I'm going to use animator to transition between the two. Now I could do this manually, so it sort of like opens up a little bit and then opens, but with time, I'm going to do a short one. So we have the two animations in our assets. If we select that asset, we go to animator, we have our two animations here. Now we want to tell it to switch between the two. So for that, right mouse click on that, right mouse click on that. By default, it will be on layers. Go to parameters. And then we want a Boolean, a true or false. So when you walk into the collider, it'll set it to true, open it, and when you walk away, it'll close it. So let's do that with a Boolean. I'm just going to use is open. Capitals is very important, so make sure you pay attention to this parameter's spelling and capitalization. Now, from chest idle, which is the default animation, I can do that by right mouse clicking, go set as default layer state. So if I wanted to start the space with this open, I could change that, but I want it closed. Click on an arrow and then go has exit time to off. This means that I can trigger this animation whenever I want. Has exit time means it will only transition after this point. But I want to open it whenever. But if you turn that off, you have to make sure that it has a condition to do it. So is open is to true. So when is open is true, do this animation, and it looks like that. Let's make it a bit slower. There. Yeah, that's what we want. Is open true. Let's just clean that up to be 0.5. So that's good. Same thing again. Exit. I want to close it faster. So let's do this 0.3. Move that a bit up. And then once again, is open to false. So that's it. So that's our animation. The next thing we need to do is create a reactor. So I usually put it on a separate asset just to keep it clean. Let's go reactor. Mono reactor. And by default, just to practice or get into the habit, because if you don't have one of these, it will break, I want a box collider as well. So the idea is, if a player walks into this collider, trigger the parameter. So let's go maybe a bit bigger, maybe here. Maybe only in the front. Yeah. And a little bit bigger on the sides. Cool. Now, notice how these are going red? That is because this is red. So all this is going to be animated. We don't want that. So I'm going to turn off that, and then I'm just going to press delete and make sure it's not on the chest as well. So notice how we lose all that. So keep in mind, and I always do that, when your animation tool is on, make sure it is not. Again, maybe a bit bigger, but kind of not behind. I kind of like that idea. All right. So when I walk into this collider, when I enter the trigger, I want to open chest. Now, this is purely the heading there, that's all. I want to set, I can do other cool things, but I want to set the asset with the animator. So if you look at this, animator, parameter, which was is open with a capital O, Boolean to true. And I want this to be multiplayer. So local will just be the player. I want everyone to see me open this amazing chest. That's good. And same again with on exit trigger. So once again, close chest, set the chest parameter, which is open, to Boolean, which is false. F-A-L-S-E. Make sure you spell that correct as well. Same with that. And lowercase f, lowercase t. Okay. So, when I go into this, do this and this. That should be cool. Save. Playground. have a chest. Cool. All right. Now, one more time, I'm going to make an interactive test because we have 7 minutes and I think I can do it to make a good 2 clean hour session. So, chest. I'm going to duplicate this one. Duplicate. Move that to here. Change the name of this one. Interactable. Now, for this one, we don't want triggers, enter triggers. We want a on player interact. And for this, we need this box to be on the asset when I look at it. So let's do that. And let's go maybe there. There. That works. Now, when I look at it, I want to say open. Open. Just set the animator is open, Boolean to true. And actually so I want to open it by interacting with it, but then I want to close it when I walk away. So I actually want to put that one back. Is open, Boolean false. Problem. We have one box collider, and this one is looking at it. So we can either separate 2 reactors. So one is close the chest and one is open the chest. So that works. Another approach. Yeah, I'm going to do a different approach. I'm going to invert is open Boolean. So every time I interact with it, I will open it or close it. So in this case, I'm just going to say chest. Now, at the moment, we have to keep true or false, doesn't matter, because it's going to invert whatever state it is, so that's fine. So for this case, I'm just going to do that. Save before exporting. It is easy once you get used to it. But if you're not used to it, like if you're not used to animation, animator, this is a lot more complex than it looks, actually. It's just a stage process. So animations, how those animations interact with each other with like transitions, and then setting those transitions. So it's those 3 things. All in the docs. And also described a bit easier in the docs in detail. So there's the short version and then the long version. So if we go to adding interactivity, we have Reactor introduction, which is what it is. And then we sort of break up animation using animator, the Reactor component, and then putting it all together in one. So if you're comfortable with animation and animator, you can just go to the Reactor overview. But if you're not, you can sort of pull it apart a bit more. So resources are there. So let's do that. Okay, so we have the one that opens when we want it to, and then we have our chest. So with invert, it will just do that kind of thing, right? So open, and then again for closed. Now, the other approach is to have 2 reactors. So when you interact with it and you're in the box, when you leave the box, then it will close automatically with 2 different reactors because you need 2 different colliders. So by adding, multiplying, combining different reactors, you can do some really cool stuff. So yeah, there we go. That's today's. That'll be cool. That's today's efforts. So with today, as a quick summary, we made 4 assets. Well, no, we made 3. Well, with Reactor and trim sheets, we made 4 assets, and all of these have 1 material. Um, Now, depending on how you create your space, the space would optimize these assets to actually be 1 object as well, which would mean we would have 4 objects with 1 material, being 1 object with 1 material. The other approach is, of course, doing that like yourself. So if I had 5 vases, on a shelf, and I knew they were going to be there and not do anything, I could possibly join them in Blender, use the 1 material, and then that is 1 asset with 1 material. Um, so once again, many different ways to optimize your space and create all the cool things. So hopefully that's a good summary. Good 2.5 hour session, so pretty happy with that. Let's jump in just quickly to some of the events coming up. So, if you go to the time on the events in the Discord, you will see the time according to your time zone. I'm not going to tell you mine because I'm in time zone Japan, and it doesn't apply to anyone, pretty much. Tomorrow, let's see, a little more than 12 hours away, is the Blender workshop with Fractilians and Rizzle. They're going into basically working with Blender from scratch to make a low poly event space and things like that. Really, really good vibe, and that's in the Discord channel chat. So ask all your questions in regards to Blender in general and all that sort of stuff as well. And then, of course, in a couple of days, we have the community call as well, which is a great opportunity to get all the latest updates and feedback, offering feedback to the Mona crew. Unfortunately, all of these are way too early in the morning. They're 4 a.m. for me, so I can't go to them because of my time zone, but here you are. I don't think I'll be here in the next couple of weeks. I'm taking a couple of weeks off. These workshops might be wrapped up, at least for a little while, and then I'll be back in full force in a couple of weeks. So looking forward to get back into that. If you have any quests for workshops that you would like to see, maybe a retopology workshop, that could definitely work, actually. That's probably a good time. But also looking at probably going through the getting started approach, because we haven't done one in a while, and now that we've updated to Unity 2022, you can do some cool stuff like visual scripting and stuff like that. So yeah, lots going on. If you don't have any other questions, I will wrap it up there. Thanks for joining. Yes, most of these things will be put up on the Mona YouTube channel. This will go live straight away. So once this is turned off, it will be on the channel for all to use, comment on, do whatever you like. So yeah, most of the workshops will be uploaded at some point for all to learn and grow with. So yeah. Any other questions? Excellent. Fantastic. Thanks for the great questions today. Really enjoyed it. As I said, I enjoy trim sheets. They're cool. You can do some really good stuff. And once again, like the asset you create depends on the texture. So if you wanted a concrete texture with some really cool detail, if you wanted an Egyptian pyramid, like you could do all of a pyramid with one texture, to be honest. Like all of the detail, all of the walls, all the concrete blocks, all that sort of stuff. The texture is king when it comes to trim sheets, and it's just getting that polygons down once again to the right amount for the assets you're creating, rather than going hell for leather and hoping for the best. Of course, always test. I build the playground; it's super quick.
So it's very easy to sort of see what you're doing. And of course, if you press page up, nope, if you're in a space and press page up, you can see your frame rate and you have all sorts of options to help you with your details. So frame rates um, is super useful in regards to sort of getting where you're at. You're looking at all of these sort of things that give you what's going on there. So you can pull that up with page up, page down. I think, don't know if that still works anymore. Okay, no, excellent. So we've cleaned that up, so it's just the one. So page up will pull up a debug that allows you to get a bit more of an idea of how well your space is running. If you start getting like really low poly counts, I think under 40, you'll basically fail QA if you're minting it, for example. Because anything less than 40 is not a very good experience. Like you got that frame rate, which isn't very good. And just a heads up for you to know, if you ever get to VR, especially standalone VR, the frame rate you get on a desktop will be significantly lower on a Quest 2, for example. So usually if you're designing a space for VR or mobile, you're designing this space for VR or mobile. You wouldn't be using a desktop space in these assets, in these environments, because there's a reason they look worse, because those devices have very limited hardware. Um, that said, my 2070 RTX does a great job with two doors and a couple of chests. But yeah, so ideally you'd want to get around probably 60 to 90 frames a second for a comfortable experience. In a desktop, with VR, you need a minimum of 90 frames a second. Anything less and people get sick. So yeah, VR is a whole different ballgame, and optimization is everything when it comes to that sort of stuff. So just a heads up on that. That said, on a mobile device, so on an actual mobile, you could have like 50 frames a second because you don't have that people getting sick thing. But with VR, you need 90 frames a second. Yeah, let's for a comfortable experience. I'll say that much. Any less, like above 75, and it's like you're pushing it, like it might be okay, but if they don't get motion sick in any way, shape, or form, they might be able to get by. But you don't want that. You want good experiences at 90 frames a second for VR. That said, desktop VR is a higher level element again. So you've definitely got tiers of content, and the way you create your assets depend on what you're designing it for. So there's that. Okay. All right, let's wrap it up there. Thanks for joining all, and don't forget to like and subscribe. I keep forgetting that. That's the thing people say, so I'm going to say it as well. And I'll see you in the Discord if you have any other questions. Have a nice day and happy building. Yeah.